That's what sets good practitioners aside from TRT clinics that are just trying to sign up as many people as possible, make as much money per person as possible, and not really give a damn about whether you get good results or whether you just get okay results, because they get paid the same at the end of the day. Okay, everyone, welcome to my solo podcast episode here at Victory Lens Health. Recently, I uploaded, and if you haven't seen it yet, you can check it out on my YouTube page. There is a full 90-minute troubleshooting TRT lecture, which was actually a rehash of the same lecture that I did 3 years ago, but I had some additional thoughts and insights that I wanted to round out the video with, plus also record it in some better quality because the previous quality was pretty average. I actually went to a recording studio to do the original version, but stuffed it up and actually made it sound worse than if I had just done it at home on my laptop. So that was kind of painful. But what I wanted to do today is do a bit of a retrospective on that video, as well as give people a bit of a short and sweet summary of some of the key points, because that video goes very in-depth into a number of topics, and I think it would be good to be able to give a little bit of a commentary on the overarching, I guess, state of troubleshooting TRT in 2026, because I stand by the fact that I think the majority of people watching videos or listening to podcasts about TRT are looking to troubleshoot or optimize. And that makes a lot of sense to me. So without further ado, the main areas of troubleshooting TRT that I'm going to cover today, I'm going to do a part 2 to cover the rest of them. But the first area that I want to talk about is undiagnosed secondary medical conditions. And this is a really important point to highlight and to illustrate, because a lot of people, including myself, make a lot of content around what are the most statistically prevalent issues that people are having on TRT. And most of them are related to lifestyle. They're related to poor habits. They're related to poor metabolic health as an outcome of eating too much junk food, not doing enough exercise, drinking too much alcohol, being dehydrated, and even just kind of being 80-20 in all of these departments can overall add up to an imbalance that you might feel okay. It's not going to acutely kill you, but if the goal is to feel optimal and have the best possible outcomes from TRT, you're going to get 80-20 results from 80-20 effort. And that's a whole separate discussion that I'm going to have in the next video. But the thing I wanted to talk about today is, as someone who troubleshoots a lot of cases professionally for people when they come and see me when they haven't been able to resolve what's going on with their current clinic or current provider, there's a pretty clear trend of what tends to be the most common issues. So I'm just going to reposition my microphone here. And that might be its coordinate. That should sound a little bit better. So the issue that I see a lot of people having is related to something that no one's looked for. And this is a big problem in health, because if you're only testing for a handful of markers, if you're only asking a handful of questions, if any questions at all, then you're only going to have a handful of variables to work with. And if the issue is related to one of these variables, then it can be solved by solving or tweaking one of these variables. And that's fantastic. But problems arise when there are issues in departments that aren't even being looked at. So if someone has a thyroid issue and the TRT clinic isn't even running a basic thyroid panel, and the patient's coming back with symptoms of hypothyroidism, the provider is going to look at that and say, oh, well, there are also symptoms of not enough testosterone. Here, have some more testosterone. Or saying, oh, well, that could be because you're not taking HCG, which, all men, quote unquote, and I'm putting this in air quotes for people who are listening, need HCG on TRT. That's a joke, they don't. Here's some HCG to solve the issue. Well, they're saying, oh, well, that sounds like your estrogen's running too high because ChatGPT said that those symptoms could be too much estrogen in men on TRT, so here's anastrozole. And I see this day in and day out, because these kind of issues, I think, are too complicated or fall outside the scope of what a TRT clinic is willing to practice within, because they're saying, well, once we get into all that stuff, it starts to become a bit too difficult. Let's just keep it simple. Let's just keep the toolbox small. And what that means is that a lot of patients get put in the too hard basket. And if people didn't catch the sarcasm in my voice, the solution is not the HCG, it's not the anastrozole, it's actually getting to the bottom of what the issue is. And the two most commonly missed issues that I see in people's health are hypothyroidism, especially undiagnosed Hashimoto's hypothyroidism, because people either aren't running antibodies, because TSH, T3, T4 are within, again, air quotes, normal ranges. Or it can be age-related decline in thyroid function that people simply aren't picking up. Or if someone's particularly unlucky, they could have something like empty sella or some kind of other pituitary issue, which is leading to a downregulation of the thyroid's function upstream from the thyroid gland itself.
If you've just started TRT, it is completely normal to feel overwhelmed and confused. There's a lot of new territory to cover, and there is a lot of conflicting information. I wrote TRT 101 so that you can have everything that you need to know in an instruction manual in one place that you can refer back to, that you can have all the questions answered before they even come up. TRT 101 is my best practice approach for TRT from start to finish, and it contains everything that you need to avoid all the challenges and pitfalls that I've seen come up in my clients over the last 5 years. You can check it out via the link below.
And the other issue that I see more often than anything else is the combination presentation of alcoholic fatty liver disease or non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. The fat in the liver is the same, the cause is different. And the resulting, kind of chicken or the egg in terms of which one comes first, it can be either or, metabolic syndrome. And when a TRT patient has metabolic syndrome and a liver full of fat, there's not going to be a TRT protocol that delivers them the optimal outcomes without any side effects. Because the pathway in which the testosterone is metabolized and utilized at a cellular level is compromised. The body is under enormous stress because the liver's filled up with fat, which is not supposed to be there. It's kind of like a bathroom sink that's clogged with hair. And the body isn't able to efficiently burn glucose. And as a result, the stress that the body's under will upregulate the production of aromatase due to trying to have an anti-inflammatory effect. And also, the body will be impaired in its ability to metabolize both estrogens produced naturally by the body, as well as environmental xenoestrogens and toxins, which will build up as a result and lead to things like iron overload, which is what you can pick up in the blood work. And when people are having these issues, throwing some anastrozole at it, or throwing some, I don't really know what else people are going to be throwing at these kind of symptoms, some HCG, or tweaking the dose up or down, or left or right, or changing the route of administration, this is basically trying to put a Band-Aid on an open wound and you don't even know where the wound is. So one of the things that I've been advocating for a long time as a result of seeing this play out so often is that TRT should really only be initiated with the addition of a comprehensive blood panel, which reviews all markers of health, all hormonal markers, all metabolic markers, everything to do with what's going on with that patient's internal biology, as well as a full assessment of their diet and lifestyle, so that the practitioner can competently see around the corner for what the potential implications might be if these lifestyle patterns are not addressed, or to order additional follow-up labs to be able to identify if there are comorbidities or secondary conditions which I wouldn't say contraindicate TRT, but now make TRT a bit more complicated because there are more moving parts. There are more variables which are going on. And typically what these cases require is a combination of an expert practitioner who is actually going to give a damn about taking the time to actually really understand what's going on, but also to teach the patient what's going on so that they actually know not just what they need to do, but why they need to do it. And then the patient also has to come out of that conversation actually willing to put the work in. And that way the work needs to be prescribed in a manner that is realistically achievable. You know, I would never recommend that someone did a vegan 1 meal a day ketogenic diet. I don't know why anyone would. But let's say that was the indication of what someone apparently needed. The compliance rate for that's going to be what? 0.1% of people would do that? Because it's not a realistic thing. Now, fortunately, that's something that no one should ever do. But if someone is completely off track with their health, if someone is completely down in the dumps with their daily habits, it's all well and good to say, well, if you went to the gym 6 days a week and you only ate home-cooked, clean, organic food, and you completely cut all the alcohol out and you sleep 8 hours a night and you hydrate yourself meticulously, cool. That's the solution. It's like, well, great. Thank you, Dr. Science, for that fantastic insight. Most of the time, people who are off track know that their habits are wrong. They don't need someone to just tell them what the perfect version of themselves would look like and then go home and look in the mirror and feel like shit because that person isn't staring back at them. Typically, they actually need a realistic roadmap or guide or some kind of intervention that allows them to get from point A to point B with little stops along the way. Milestones and increments that can be celebrated so that they can start to measure their progress and how far they've come, not how far away from their goal they have still to go. And this is a really important part of the TRT journey, is that we do have to meet patients and clients halfway. We have to meet them where they're at. And it's all well and good to say, well, you wouldn't be having these health problems if you hadn't been living a poor diet and lifestyle for the last 10 years. But unless you're planning to prescribe the patient a time machine, that's not very useful information. If anything, that's going to make them feel just much worse. So it's important that patients and doctors have a good relationship in saying, what can we work on? What can we do to get us from A to B? And how can we meet this halfway with medical intervention? And if someone is dealing with fatty liver disease or someone's dealing with hypothyroidism, then we need to be able to properly diagnose and, when necessary, image these issues so that the patient can actually see this is what's going on. Here is an objective diagnosis to say, yes, there is a thyroid problem. Yes, there is fat in the liver. This is how it got to be at this point, whether it's a genetic condition or whether it's a result of neglect of diet and lifestyle habits. And then here's a way out of that with a combination of habits and daily practices that can be improved. Typically, they involve adopting things that are good for you and ceasing things that are bad for you. And rebalancing that equation is a very efficient use of effort. But also there can be protocols and treatments put in place. Hypothyroidism needs to be treated with thyroid hormone. Things like fatty liver disease need to be eradicated with supplements like choline and inositol to flush the fat out of the liver, in conjunction with eating in a caloric deficit and other methods of improving insulin sensitivity. All of these things can be done in concert. They can be done in conjunction to get someone from A to B. But if we're only looking at one single metric, one single handful of blood work, we're looking at a CBC and a total testosterone and SHBG, we can really only solve the problems with the variables that we're looking at. And if we don't identify the right variables, then it won't be possible to identify the right solution. And patients are never going to get to where they need to be. And a lot of the time they become despondent, they become jaded, they become resentful of the system because they've paid all these different doctors and all these different clinics all this money to end up still at square one. Because no one's doing the proper testing and no one's taking the time to really talk to the patient to understand why they are where they're at. So when it comes to troubleshooting TRT, the best solution is prevention. What's the saying? Like, the best rehab is prehab. And for people who are listening to this who haven't started their journey yet, as someone who can see around the corner of what's going to happen for the majority of people, is that if you have everything assessed from the start, all side effects, all potential complications can be prevented and or resolved by an expert practitioner. You shouldn't have to run into issues to realize that you have a problem, because someone who knows what they're doing is going to make sure that you're not going to crash into any roadblocks down the line by actually running the correct testing from the get-go to make sure that it's all clear ahead. And that's the role of a good practitioner. And that's what sets good practitioners aside from TRT clinics that are just trying to sign up as many people as possible, make as much money per person as possible, and not really give a damn about whether you get good results or whether you just get okay results, because they get paid the same at the end of the day. So they are the two most common things. And if people are having side effects on TRT, if people are having problems where things don't feel right, they're feeling bloated, they're feeling like they're having water retention, they feel like they're moody, like they're not getting the results that they should be getting, it's usually not about just band-aiding symptoms or deciding that your body is individually defective for no good reason. It's about finding what is the root cause of the dysfunction. Maybe it's a bad protocol design. I'm going to talk about that in the next video because that's very important. But no protocol optimization will fix a secondary condition. No injection frequency of TRT will fix Hashimoto's hypothyroidism. No topical or injectable or hybrid of both protocol will fix fatty liver disease. These things can be treated and can be diagnosed and can be rectified. And it's important to do that as early as possible because it's much easier to prevent the issues and have to deal with the issues when they come up. So I hope that video helped. If you want the full deep dive, check out the Troubleshooting TRT lecture. And otherwise, I'll see you guys all for part 2.
Many of the side effects that they experience when correcting this are due to the biological consequences of chronic inflammation. It's important to support and adjust the TRT and supplement protocol for the patient in terms of where they're at now based on their different state of health at baseline. Daily injections actually do lead to a natural slight fluctuation in levels because of these pharmacokinetic peaks. So just like caffeine has a half-life of 8 hours, it doesn't have a gradual increase at up to 4 hours and then a gradual decrease in the desired effects.